IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show.
Yes.
Sir Charles
Miss Max.
in the booth in the building once again. Back like we never
Live and in
left.
full effect.
That is right.
There we go.
Here for the people. Everybody good?
Mm-hmm.
Everybody feeling it?
Ready to go.
Ready to go. Miss Max Wellness Check. How are you doing this
I
Sunday?
am wonderful.
That's what I want to hear.
Wonderful.
Man, wonderful. Like so, so so we got a job to do, and you don't even have to fake it today. Like you really feeling good.
Yeah. No, I'm feeling good, and I'm excited. It's been a minute since we've been live. The show's been live, and so I'm just excited. I'm excited to talk to our guests today, have a good conversation. Most of all, connect with our listening audience.
That's what it's about right there. What it's about. IMHO Talk Show. Tell a friend.
Mm-hmm.
We are like MasterCard. We everywhere you want to be. We on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube.
Find us.
On your FM apps at WVAI 101 Jam.
Mm-hmm.
So so much word, so much good news. We're gonna get the people what they want. Miss Max got a lot of topics covered today. It is May. A lot goes on in May, including Mother's Day. Shout out to all the mothers out there listening. Because we got a lot of loyal women listeners that listen to us in the car or in the house with the children. Appreciate that.
Bike Awareness Month, I believe.
Oh yes.
Oh,
I only know. I'm not out riding a bike. By the way. Don't get it twisted.
City.
I only know this because I get inundated with emails.
Yeah.
Truth be told.
Don't even get me started on all the awareness. If I'm not mistaken, it's also because I think last month was like Fair Housing Month, and if I'm not mistaken, May is Affordable Housing Month.
Maybe so. I can't keep up.
So much that we're going to be covering, today and throughout the month. So a great way to kick off May, like the headlines that we're going to touch on today, whether it's through Ask Max or hearing Razor Rant, or, we're going to be joined by none other than our good friend, Eugene Cash, executive over at Counseling Alliance of Virginia, to talk, give us some mental health tips and talk about, what mostly to be aware of this month and what he has coming up for all the good people.
Somebody listening just got really excited about hearing a Razor's rant. I'm telling you, people love it.
I'm sure, because Ms. Max, like for those that don't know, it's like we always aim every show to cover all our bases, but sometimes the demand gets so high of folks who want to be on the airwaves with us, to where you just can't cover everything, or the conversation gets so good,
that's right,
to where it just runs, and questions keep coming in, comments keep coming in, and so you don't want to cut anybody off. But I feel like today is possibly one of those good days to where like we're gonna get back to the to the good old IMHO. But that being said, Miss Max, we are joined in studio by our own Jason Melendez. We see this young brother all around town, and he has so obliged us to be a political correspondent for us regularly. We've seen the brother monthly now for the past couple months.
It was the third time, right? It's the third time.
I believe so.
Tell us something new.
There's plenty to work with.
That's right. Yeah. So, but we really appreciate that, because these news headlines, politics are so weighing so heavy right now. Jason, of course, this is an election year locally. Local and state government, and just federally, we're only just a few months into the new, presidency, but so much has already changed. And so that's why there's so much to cover within that regard. But what you got for us today, Jason? Like what's top of mind? Like what are the bullet points that we should discuss for the good people?
Yeah, I mean, well, we just passed 100 days into this new White House, and I didn't realize 100 days could actually be this long. It feels like we've been doing this for ages already, because the headlines, have just continued to come. In terms of what I'm hearing from the community, definitely a lot of immigration related concerns. Of course, we have a large refugee population here, a large immigrant population in Charlottesville. So that's been top of mind for a lot of folks, especially with what happened at the courthouse on the 22nd of April.
Okay, what happened?
So that was where we had it was plainclothes ICE agents that detained 2 individuals coming out of Albemarle General District Court. And there was a lot of concerns around that because you have plainclothes federal agents coming into a Virginia state courthouse, fully masked. And there's due process concerns. There's concerns about whether that's even the right way to go about any sort of that thing like that, because it looked like a kidnapping. I mean, that's really kind of what I would define it as a kidnapping.
Did they identify themselves?
They claim they did. So there's been a back and forth between ICE and between the sheriff's office and some of the other folks in the county. We haven't seen this issue pop up in the city yet, so I'm be curious. It seems that the city of Charlottesville has been pretty clear on where it stands. So we haven't seen that happen in the city, but I know there's been a large back and forth, and I think the sheriff is continuing to look at it. The Commonwealth's attorney is continuing to look at it in the county. So hopefully we'll know more soon, but it's been pretty opaque so far.
How much authority do we really have here? We may not like it, but
yeah, I mean, our options are limited. I mean, some people say that it's up to the judges to determine what kind of enforcement activity goes on in the courthouse. I was actually recently talking with a clerk in another locality, a much larger locality in Virginia. I was sharing that their judges really don't want that kind of enforcement activity happening in their courthouse. Of course, a lot of our judges here are Rob Bell appointees, so that some of them are Rob Bell appointees. So we don't quite know exactly which way they would land when they're thinking about this sort of thing. But I think this will have both sheriffs, both James and Shan, think more critically
City
about
and county sheriffs.
think more critically about courthouse security and what happens at the interaction with federal law enforcement.
Yeah, and Max, even if it's not legally that much we can do, like I think we're seeing this across the board when it comes to different aspects of the overreach of our federal government. Mind you, a leadership who traditionally runs on smaller government, right? But the only thing that they're trying to cut is like benefits and services. Like that's the only thing that's small is just cuts of that. But or the only thing is getting smaller. But Max, though, it's like I don't know if you saw the video. There was a young lady, the university student, I think it was the Columbia student. The surveillance cam saw her walking down the street, and correct me if I'm wrong on her location, but I believe it was in New York. But the surveillance cam caught her walking down the street and saw these guys unmarked, unidentified, walk up to her and grab her. Like they were ICE agents, but they were unidentified. And I'm sitting here as a parent, as a father.
It looks like kidnapping.
Straight like abduction, kidnapping, and good for the people that were brave enough. People were nearby that saw it and stopped them. I was like, what are you doing to this young girl? She's college age. And then they said, oh, we're with ICE and all that stuff.
And that's precisely
the number of people that could impersonate these type of situations.
Well, and that's been happening. That is happening now.
Yeah.
But and that also layers in a whole other concern. When this happens at a courthouse like the Albemarle County Courthouse, you're talking about potential trials that are going on where you might have witnesses that could be targeted, that might be ripe for kidnapping. If somebody wanted to put that kind of attack out there on a witness that's vital to a prosecution. There's a lot of consequences to this can of worms that's now been opened. Whether it's for witnesses, whether it's for defendants who may be now less likely to appear, even on minor cases that are coming before General District Court.
Here illegally or had like some criminal charges.
Yeah, my understanding is that they were both undocumented individuals. I don't know what their criminal history is or prior interactions are with the judiciary. I believe my understanding is both of them that were at court for that day both had charges dismissed. So
and that's
only to come out and then be detained by federal agents instead.
And that's always the case, though, is that like these little loopholes, because there have been some folks who have been detained or at least questioned for no good reason, but there's some who in traditional ways they have been here illegally, like whether it's student visa, work visa, things like that, but they may not be a citizen, quote unquote, right? Like, so there's been different instances to where it's like these folks though aren't committing any crimes, like they're otherwise like contributing citizens, whether that be as a student or like to our workforce, whatever the case is. So it's still this mass overreach.
Yeah,
That's just disgusting.
I mean, and it's getting to the point now where the Republicans in Virginia want to see state police and local law enforcement assist ICE, and I don't see that there's a role for local law enforcement to be assisting ICE. I mean, the federal government has expressed interest to undertake this awful series of events in terms of mass deportations and these kinds of street-style kidnappings. That is something that the federal government is going to need to contend with, that we're going to have to continue to fight in court. I mean, our local law enforcement need to do their regular jobs in our communities, doing beneficial things rather than supporting ICE. And I know that's been another parallel concern as well in the county when it came to there was a component that there may have been some ACPD officers doing welfare checks with ICE. So there's been some dialogue around that as well in terms of how that practice will evolve or ultimately hopefully end. Again, this is not something that we see in the city. So this is an example of the city and the county of our police departments are taking different angles here. Yeah.
And Max, remember we had a free speech conversation not long ago in here. And that's also that's what's in danger. And what's a threat? It's like if you say the wrong things, if you have too many people listening to you and following, they don't like how you're moving. Like this gives them sort of like open reign to come in and be like, like say like that you're a threat, to our national security or what have you. Even the gentleman who is that very controversial arrest of a gentleman that was sent to the prison in El Salvador, where some folks even saying that the whole MS-13 tattoo was photoshopped. Right? This is a gentleman that had no criminal history. But somehow got tagged with being a dangerous gang member.
Well, it was here legally, no criminal history.
Exactly, here legally, no criminal history. But the part we also can't forget about this is that we have, the Department of Justice that appeared in various levels of the federal judiciary saying, okay, we shouldn't have deported this person. We have judges saying this person needs to come back. The Supreme Court affirming that, and you have the Secretary of Homeland Security, Attorney General, and the President all saying they're not going to do any of that. And that is the prime issue here is we're looking at a constitutional crisis. And the way I think about it, and I heard Congresswoman McClellan put it this way on the floor when she was speaking the other day, we're coming up on the 250th anniversary of the United States, U.S. independence. And it's starting to wonder whether we're going to be looking more like at a funeral or a mourning ceremony rather than an anniversary when we look at how the Constitution is being perverted by conservatives in office.
Yeah. Now, before we go too deep down that hole, the Charlottesville thing, y'all remember when Mr. Signer was the mayor, like a lot of the sanctuary town, the safe haven city stuff led to a lot of trouble as far as like his reputation, his image, right? Like a lot of folks wanted to fight back against that, thought that Charlottesville was this beacon of democracy, right? And like so that led to a lot of the August 12th stuff and whatnot. So I'm curious, is there like a fear right now locally of people being too boisterous, like standing up for that level of democracy?
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of different angles on it. Like I've heard a lot of people say, Charlottesville needs to be diligent in how it navigates the spotlight, because Charlottesville is not a stranger to being in the spotlight. I didn't live in Charlottesville when what happened in 2017 happened, so I can only imagine. But I know you both were here. So I mean, I think that's part of the dialogue. But I think there are also a number of folks that want to see at the granular level, our local elected officials, our state elected officials do what's right, because that's what's in our control, in our domain. We can only do so much about Washington at the current moment, but we can at least push back locally. And I think that's what's been helpful so far.
Gotcha.
I mean, I guess I'm going to say something very unpopular here, but I mean, I know that I am. I'm sure that there is a way to conduct this effort in a very humane, safe and fair manner. But if there are individuals no different than, if dare I say deportation, when one of us gets ripped off the street and placed in a jail or prison because of us pumping drugs into our community or taking lives and senseless violence in our community or different things like that, if there are individuals are committing crimes, creating a less safe place for us to live, if individuals are, in our city illegally, I think that still needs to be addressed. I think there's a proper way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we
but
got
it
the due
still
process
has
element
to
for
be
that.
addressed.
Yeah, and that's why we got the due process element. If you're being tried on a felony, and chances are you're going to be, remanded to state custody at that point. The likelihood of that from that point on is if you are here unlawfully, chances are you probably are going to be deported. As for and I think there's got to be some sort of gradation. Here, like if you get a speeding ticket and you maybe it was happened to be 86 miles an hour and they charge you with reckless driving just because they can, that probably shouldn't be a reason to deport somebody. But
Sure.
when we're talking about felonies and we move into some of the more particular crimes I think folks may have concerns with, that's why we have the whole due process element there. And I think that's the White House's position that people that are undocumented don't have due process is problematic because we've never had that position before. We've always assumed that everyone here, whether you're here visiting, whether you're a citizen, whether you're undocumented or not, that you have access to due process when you're interacting with the courts.
What makes that the trickiest, right? Even more tricky now is that you have a government that doesn't even seem to respect its own rules.
Yeah,
like they are bypassing like Constitution at every step.
Charles, we are so far past that.
So, but my point is then how can we expect citizens or the people to respect the law when those?
Well, and that's my my ultimate point when I mentioned how the White House is not willing to listen to the judges that have ruled on the case of Kilmar Garcia is if the White House isn't willing to listen to judges, then why should anybody else listen to a judge? If they get a speeding ticket and they go in and they get a disposition on their case, why should they listen to the judge if the president won't even listen to a judge?
Yeah. Now, to that point, the Constitution, since we brought that up, and we are talking to Jason Melendez, political strategist. So, I've been hearing talk about a constitutional convention, and apparently, I think it was 1817 that was done because the country, meaning the government and the people, were sort of like so wayward and felt like that maybe they didn't align or they were out of alignment so much with the Constitution to where our representatives determined that we needed a constitutional convention, which was to readdress, maybe make amendments to see what changes needed to be made for it to fit our people better for that time. So I'm hearing this talk now, Jason, and I think you may be a little familiar with that. Like, what is the realistic possibility of this country having a constitutional convention?
I would say probably next to none. I mean, there have been people that have beaten that drum for a long time. The way I liken it is, you can hardly get 50 people to go in a Starbucks and agree on one order together, let alone 34, which is what you need to actually get some amendments out of that convention. So, in this particular moment, I don't see that being as the viable path. What I wish was the viable path was that we would simply just have in elected office leaders who respect the foundation that we have set, at least at a bare minimum, because things. Incapable of compromise. I mean, the underlying budget is still a decent foundation, but it's very clear that Governor Youngkin is realizing, and maybe he's not willing to say it publicly, but he's realizing that revenue in Virginia is going to decline with the chaos that's going on in DC. And when we are losing federal jobs in Virginia and federal contractors are losing their contracts in Virginia, it is going to not be great for state government. And lose $900 million of spending that's impacting all sorts of things, whether it's entitlement programs, K-12 education, to lose money for capital projects. This is a big deal. And it's I mean, even in Charlottesville, I mean, we lost the money for the shelter.
What shelter says?
The low barrier shelter that the city was looking to get built. There was going to be $1.5 million in state matching funds that the governor also line item vetoed, as well as money for Biscuit Run, a trail connecting Biscuit Run and the Monacan Park that's going to be built down there. So Charlottesville, lost out on some money with these vetoes as well. But I mean, it paints a troubling sign for what comes next for these next few months, fiscally. And I know the city is experiencing this as well as it works through implementing the budget. I believe it just adopted in the budget. It's starting to craft for the next cycle. Things are going to get tough. Some projects are probably going to end up, having to go by the wayside. And it reminds me a lot of 2008 and 2009. And it's unfortunate because we didn't have to be in this position either.
How do you project that these cuts may impact our benefits like TANF, SNAP, food stamps?
Yeah, so at the federal level, I mean, if they move forward with their budget plan, I mean, we're going to see folks probably ultimately, there are going to be at least a portion of folks getting kicked off of their food stamp benefits and their TANF benefits. I mean, they made it pretty clear that they're willing to sacrifice. Republicans have made it in Congress very clear that they're willing to sacrifice that kind of money. They don't see it as important. They don't see it as important to help, young mothers that might be pregnant that can't work and need access to TANF or food stamps. They don't view those things as important. They don't view Medicaid as important. So it's going to be pretty dark ahead, and ideally, this is where we would want the state to step up and say, what can we do as a state to bring in programs to help people? But we can only do that with sound revenue, and we can't bring in sound revenue if all around us, Virginia's economy is so dependent on the federal government that we're losing money as a state. So we have some real thinking to do in these next few years ahead. Because I don't think this is just the beginning. And I saw that Congressman McGuire was here over the weekend in Charlottesville. I really would hope that he would host a town hall, because I think there are a lot of committee members that have questions about some of the federal spending things going on, whether it's research programs at UVA, whether it's health research at UVA Health, whether it's what happened at FEI, which thankfully the city turned that into a good thing by purchasing FEI for I believe free, or just taking it off of the department's hands.
That was big.
The layoffs at Shenandoah National Park. I mean, the list goes on. Money lost to Ready Kids, money lost to Piedmont Housing Alliance. So I wish McGuire would actually come to Charlottesville and host a town hall, because that'd be really nice.
Now, the piece you said about the cutting, though, the hope from some was that you cut the wasteful government spending, and that is supposed to generate jobs. It's supposed to boost the economy, because then you have to contract workers instead of them just being, government employees. Like, is that happening? Is that working out?
It seems to not be the case. I mean, in Virginia, what we're on track to do is erase jobs growth that we've had over the last few years. And it's really going to take a hit on our revenue estimates in terms of tax revenue that we're bringing on income tax. And the other thing is, think about Virginia is for unemployment insurance. We don't have, we didn't, I believe up until this year, we didn't have protections for contractors. So if you're a federal contractor and you got laid off, I mean, you're kind of screwed. So, we're working on fixing that. But then again, the unemployment disbursement in Virginia is not very high per week. So I think folks are going to start to realize, it's going to start to come into perspective very quickly. I think for many folks in Northern Virginia, it's starting to come into perspective really quickly, especially. I've had friends that worked at FEI, that got laid off, and it was kind of very haphazard. Executive order was signed, and then the building was shut down. So, I mean, where did it even begin, honestly?
Yeah, you're right. We are talking to Jason Melendez, political strategist here, IMHO Talk Show. So our good friends over at Charlottesville Tomorrow had an article recently too about there seems to be a little bit of confusion as far as what's expected from the police and citizens like overview board and like the oversight board, like when it comes to like what's expected from them. I'm not sure if you've been a part of any of those conversations, but like when it comes to police and citizens oversight boards, I'm kind of curious on on the stance of those maybe statewide, or if there's something peculiar to Charlottesville and specific issues are we seeing at other places?
Yeah, I'll say there's not many across Virginia to begin with, so I wouldn't really know where to model it from. But I mean, in terms of what I've heard and what I've seen, in terms of the articles about the PCOB here in Charlottesville, there seems to be just some sort of disconnect to getting it in a smooth running, fashion, compared to other localities that I know have also implemented them. And I don't know what the catalyst is necessarily to fix that. I don't know if that's something that council needs to kind of intervene on and really set the tone. I don't know if that happens from the city management level. I don't know really kind of what's going to crack that. But the PCOB, since we have it, we should ideally want it to be a functional, entity. And I don't know if that's what we could call it currently at the moment.
Yeah. Well, I hear regular conversations where the police department, the evaluation of them seems to be that they're doing a fine job. Is that what you hear when you talk to people in the community?
Generally, yeah. I think there's a disconnect maybe between the product and the byproduct of the work that's coming out of the agencies, maybe not so much aligned with what people are seeing out of the actual board itself. I think people view the board as maybe not as functional at this current moment. But I think there's still important work to be done. So I'm hoping that evolves over time. I know there's vacancies, I think, on that board, maybe still. So hopefully, as new board members cycle in, they can kind of find their footing and build that productive relationship with the department.
We've had them on here multiple times, Razor. Like, like through the different evolutions of the PCOB, the Police Civilian Oversight Board there's a reason
I applied to be on the Human Rights Commission, not PCOB.
And it's like, but it's still trying to gain traction though. But we remember we're also dealing with the government, like that doesn't want checks and balances, right? Like whatever they say is truth, you're not allowed to fact check.
Can I fill in the blanks for you a little bit?
That's why I'm kicking it to you.
Okay, got you.
All right. Well, let me help y'all fill in a little bit of the blanks. The reason that there's a disconnect is because if you go use the PCOB, you cannot talk to the police chief to try to solve your problem. You cannot talk to the city manager to solve your problem. It's set that way. So if you're doing anything with the PCOB that's supposed to be an oversight on the situations that you have, they're not allowed to talk to you, and that's in their rules and regulations. Gotcha. So that's the problem. And if anybody wants to know how I know, I can give you a case number that definitely will let you know that. So that's the problem. They know the problem exists, and they're not going to fix the problem because there's this thing called accountability. At that point, all your eggs are on the table.
So whose place is it to fix it though? Is that police or is that city council?
No. It's the product. It's almost like the legal system. It's not broken. It's set to be what it's supposed to be. Nobody wants somebody over top your shoulder telling you how to do your job and critiquing you. And in all honesty, the police department does the best jobs that they can do with what they're working with at times. You know what I'm saying? And that means the people that work for them as well. The new officers coming in, who some of them want to make a difference, some of them want to have a job. And the police chief has to try to balance all that and try to make the community happy, right? But we have to remember,
Chief has done a pretty good
he's
job.
done a good job. Like honest to God, he's done a good job. But this is a business. I was reminded that by somebody who I trust extremely well, right? This is a business all in all. And when it comes down to, is it good business for us to do X, Y, Z, even though you may have a problem with the PCOB not being able to do their job, what the police department may or may not have done to you in that situation, there's nothing that can be done because it's a business. And if it doesn't fit the narrative, it doesn't fit.
So Razor, so I hear what you're saying, but my question still stands though, is still who does that fall on? Is it like city council still administers the rules and regulations for the PCOB? Is that who the
when they write out the bylaws by which the PCOB operates by, the young lady who's running it has the answers to be able to fix it honestly. Nobody's listening to her. And that's my humble opinion, right? And to make sure everybody understand that that's my personal opinion. I think that the person who was brought here knows how to run it correctly, but I think that our hands are tied because she runs it correctly. Accountability is going to be had. So whose responsibility is it? It's nobody's. That's the problem.
But it's always the people's responsibility, like to press
the people have no
representative.
The people have no voice in this.
I feel you, but what I'm saying is that's how we vote, though, is to say, city council, we need our PCOB to do this, or we're gonna vote for somebody that will
Can't do
this.
it because it don't fit the narrative. Like we just moving in figureheads. It don't matter if it's white, black, Hispanic, green, yellow.
So you're saying that we won't find a candidate because that then brings accountability onto that candidate.
Yeah, we won't do that. Like nobody has the power solely to go against what needs to be done. And it's no different than any other government all the way up to the presidency. You know, most of the time he's a figurehead and the person behind the curtain with the wingtip shoes is the one in control. Charlottesville's the same way.
Wingtip shoes.
Yeah. That's how far I go back.
I feel you. But we are up against the hour though. But Jason, what else that you want folks to know before we close out this segment with you, good sir?
Well, I'll say early voting has begun.
Yes, primaries.
There's not many Republican primaries going on across the state, but there are a ton of Democratic primaries going on across the state, including for lieutenant governor, attorney general. And here in Charlottesville, we've got a city council Democratic primary. In Albemarle, the Jack Jewett supervisor seat has a Democratic primary as well. So early voting going on through June 14th, and primary election day on June 17th. So if you are a Democrat, at least in the Charlottesville area, get out and vote between now and then. It's going to be pretty interesting. The first ranked choice voting election in Charlottesville. So we'll see kind of what the outcome. I know you guys have had former Delegate Hudson on the show before to talk about RCV. So we'll see kind of what the outcomes are of that as folks get acclimated to it. But it seems to be that folks are getting used to it. So far, I filled out my ballot. I was actually the second voter on Friday for early voting. First voter was Vice Mayor Pinkston, so he beat me there by a little bit. I'm not a morning person. Yeah, I'm not a morning person by nature, but it was very seamless to go ahead and fill out that ballot. There are other folks that feel as though RCV might seem complicated. There's a lot of math to it. Certainly, there's a lot of math to it. But in terms of for the voter actually showing up, it's a pretty seamless process. 1, 2, or 3. I mean, it couldn't be much easier than that. So,
do you mind taking a few minutes to be a little more specific as far as the city council elections that are taking place this year? So we have 3 candidates. Maybe if you could just speak briefly about the candidates, what their platforms are.
Yeah. So first, before I even dive in that, I'll disclose that I do some consulting work for Juan Diego Wade and Brian Pinkston. Okay. So that might certainly influence how I feel about the race. But we've got 3 candidates, 2 open seats. Mayor Juan Diego Wade's running for re-election, Vice Mayor Pinkston running for re-election, and Jen Flesher is challenging both of them in the Democratic primary here. All 3 phenomenal candidates, great folks. Juan Diego Wade is absolutely, I believe, a great person to have on the city council, especially we don't see a ton of Black elected representation in Charlottesville. We're lucky to have a few Black elected officials in the school board, but only 1 Black city councilor. And we're lucky to have a mixed racial delegate. But we don't have a ton of Black political representation in Charlottesville. So I think it is important that we, in my view, reelect Juan Diego Wade. I've also voted for Brian Pinkston, of course I did. But Jen Flesher, I think, also brings a fresh voice to city council. So I think
there's 2 seats.
Yeah, 2 seats. Right. So someone's got to go. Someone's not going to make it.
Somebody got to go.
In my mind, and in terms of the way I approach my vote, my support for Brian and for Juan, is the importance of all the work that they've done these last few years in terms of the zoning ordinance, getting Buford Middle School construction project off the ground, something that, in my understanding, has been worked on since the 90s. Their work on hopefully trying to get us to this homeless shelter built. All the businesses that have been attracted to Charlottesville over their tenure. Charlottesville is really growing quickly, and I think City Council is a really good place right now. And especially as we see this chaos on the horizon, personally, I want to keep that stable, tested leadership these next 4 years at least. That way we can continue to build on the progress that we've made. But I think, again, all 3 candidates are phenomenal folks.
And shameless plug, IMHO is partnering with the next installment of Can I Talk to You, Seville, end of the month, May 27th. Jason will be there. The folks he's naming will be there at Jefferson School Auditorium. On local government, who's governing Charlottesville. So May 27th, y'all can go on our pages as well as the Vinegar Hill page, Seaville Tomorrow pages, and register. You know, because we want to know how many folks there. They're gonna be food. It's gonna be family friendly.
That's the important part. The food.
Yeah, right. And family friendly too. Like, so if you say you don't got childcare, that's not an excuse. You know, all that stuff. So so
I think in this
definitely come
moment,
talk
we
to the
need
people.
kids to show up to town halls,
That's right.
local government town halls, and understand the importance of local government and civic engagement. I mean, we need that now more than ever. So I'm glad that you guys have gone out your way to make this a family friendly event and be able to folks bring kids. So
Yeah, appreciate that. And I'm glad Max brought that up too, because I have a quick question too as we close. What's the thought process behind like co-campaigning, right? Because Juan or Brian could have ran individually, right? But they decided to stick together as mayor and vice mayor and defend those seats. I'm curious the thought process behind that.
So I'll say there's a few things. One, they just have a lot of shared respect for each other. They've gone through a transition period in the city council where we went from a period of extreme instability to now a period in which we have a fabulous city manager and things are moving in the right direction. We've got a police chief. I think, did we just bring on a city attorney as well? So things are moving in the right direction for the city. So that it first starts at the basis of shared respect. The other thing is a little bit more strategic in terms of our ability to, well, I say our because I'm part of it, I guess, our ability to fundraise together. So in terms of we've held a number of fundraising events throughout the year. In terms of a money breakdown in the race, this puts them at in terms of the last fiscal report for campaigns, I think 11-1 spending advantage compared to their opponent. So they're allowed to advertise with each other, get their name out there together. It seemed to have been effective so far. We're hoping that the investments we've made in terms of getting the information about RCV, in terms of yard signs, mailers. I mean, both Juan and Brian have been knocking on doors. Knocked over more than 2,500 doors since the beginning of the year. So we're hoping that all makes a difference as we go into it. Gotcha. They want to continue doing this work together. They view that they've had an extraordinary success as mayor and vice mayor these last 2 years or this last year. And going into this year as well, but throughout their entire term. So they want to continue that.
Yeah, awesome. And you mentioned Jim Fleischer, but I believe some uncontested seats would be Sheriff Brown, Attorney General Joe Platania. The delegates, Cree Deeds and Katrina Carlson. But then, following up the summer too, IMHO will also be a part of discussions, public forums with our school board and school board representatives that I know there's 3 seats available for that one, if I'm not mistaken. And I believe
that ought to be interesting.
I believe Amanda Burns, Emily Dooley, Lisa Torres, and then new folks to the school board scene at least. But not new to the area, which is Ayanna Bryant and Deshaun Cooper. So the school board race this year is going to be quite
I think it'll be more interesting to watch than the city council primary this time around. This Democratic primary this year is going to be interesting. We don't have a top of the ticket primary. Neither party does actually in Virginia this year. So there's no gubernatorial primaries going on. So only your hardcore Democrats are probably showing up by default to vote for lieutenant governor candidates and attorney general candidates. And
the state.
So for the primaries, so that might be a little bit interesting, these outcomes, which is where I think both Juan and Brian are very well positioned because of their continued involvement in Democratic politics in the area and their incumbency advantage. So
and a state election is important, people.
It is.
It's super important. Folks talking about what's going on here locally and how UVA relates to it.
I think there's no more election that's important. Well, of course, gubernatorial election is going to be important. Absolutely. Number one. But number 2 to that, the attorney general. We've got to elect an attorney general that does not want to be a sidekick to the U.S. attorney general and to the White House. And that's what we have currently. The Department of Justice has been going after UVA, nonstop. I guess it's probably almost a daily habit for them. We need a Virginia attorney general that's going to fight back. In my mind, the person who I believe is best positioned for that coming out of the Democratic primary is Jay Jones. There is another candidate race, Henrico Commonwealth's attorney Shannon Taylor. But I think Jay Jones is best positioned to lead us through this next few years of intense what will be intense civil litigation, fighting back against the federal government on all sorts of issues.
And why do you say that?
Well, I think Jay's background in civil law is exactly what we need at this moment. He's a former assistant attorney general in Washington, D.C. He's a former delegate here in Virginia. He's a skilled attorney, UVA law educated as well. And Shannon Taylor, absolutely also highly educated, actually hails from Albemarle originally.
Okay.
But she is a Henrico County Commonwealth's attorney. I think in this moment, I don't want to see a prosecutor step into that role because I don't want to see an expansion of the Virginia Attorney General's office as a prosecutorial arm. That's not what we need to treat it like, because that's not what it's supposed to be. We need an attorney general that is understanding of the role and what it takes at this particular moment, which is going to be civil litigation against the federal government when they come after things like UVA or come after our local school divisions, as they're already doing. That's the strong suit. That's what we need at this moment. So Shannon's great, but I think Jay is better positioned to lead us.
Gotcha.
And to be a younger voice. And probably Virginia's first Black attorney general. Probably, almost certainly. I don't think Virginia's ever had a Black attorney general. So if we can elect Jay Jones, have a first Black attorney general.
Yeah, we have the Black lieutenant governor, but I don't know if she's faring too
we've
well.
had a Black governor, but we've had Vice governor. I mean, that whole thing is all chaos itself. Speaking of radio shows and John Reed and whatnot, so we'll leave them to their own devices on that one.
Hey, Razor, let me tell you how I know you Black without saying you Black. Our lieutenant governor is a Black female, and in her campaigning, she had these building-sized posters of her holding an M16, like an AR-15 or whatever it was, right? Yeah. So now she wants to run for governor, but guess who ain't backing her? The Republicans. But they definitely used her to get her in there for lieutenant governor. That's how you know you Black without saying you Black.
And then between that and what's going on the lieutenant governor's race, because there was two candidates that were running for Republican nomination for lieutenant governor. And one of them was John Reed, who's still running as a nominee now. And the other one was Pat Harrity, who's a supervisor in Fairfax. Pat has gone through some health issues. I believe he recently had a heart attack not too long ago. So he stepped back from that primary, leaving John Reed as the nominee, who's a radio anchor out of Richmond, who also happens to be a gay man married in an interracial marriage. And Republicans have torn themselves apart trying to figure out how to work with John Reed and actually bring him into their ticket. And I'm sure you guys have all seen the stories where they're saying that he has all these social media posts out there and whatnot. And I mean, Republicans, their ticket is not unified right now.
I got a question for you. Okay, what do we do so that we don't run into the problem of just because somebody's Black running for office, that other people say that's the only reason that we're voting for them? Like, they don't look at their credentials, they don't look at anything, their resume, nothing. It's just a fact of, okay, they're Black, that's why you're voting for them. How do we get them out of that?
I wish that had worked in 2024, because then we wouldn't be in what the scenario we have right now.
Big facts.
I don't know if there's a ton of voters that are really basing it off of that. I mean, I think, of course, there's always a contingent of voters that do want to vote in alignment with demographics, which I think that makes sense from a representative point of view.
So you don't think Black people vote for somebody just because they're Black?
I mean, I'm sure there are people out there that do that.
I'm sure it's a lot of them.
I mean,
I was one of them.
But it's no different than somebody who will vote for a white opponent because
I'm just
don't
saying.
want to vote somebody.
But how do you get past the ideology? Now that I'm older now, I'm looking at it like, okay, how do I? Because if I can't change your mindset about something, your prejudices, then you're not going to look at who's the best candidate for the job. So how do we get past it? We watched that in a lot of people's opinion when it, like you said, 2024.
Yeah, and I think, kind of one of the interesting things that we're seeing a lot of in the news cycles right now is a lot of these polls, kind of these regretting voters polls. On forward with this blueprint that Republican chaos is leaving for us.
I think that, if I humbly say this, right? I couldn't disagree with you more, because while somebody may be painting a picture like, man, you show that y'all just can't govern us, right? The fact that you're telling people what's wrong with them will continually make them not come to your side. So in my 50 years, getting ready to be 51 years, I've learned that, okay, a person can be dead wrong, but if you can find a way to leave them with respect, then you stand a better chance of getting them to understand your viewpoint.
And the
way
not,
you just said it wasn't that way.
Well, I'd say probably misinterpret it, because what I'm arguing here is that it's important for us to lay the groundwork and demonstrate that Republicans aren't governing effectively. That doesn't mean you have to disrespect somebody. You know, that means reminding somebody that perhaps if they have a grandparent that relies on Medicaid to have their long-term care paid for, that is on the chopping block. That's not disrespecting anybody. That's just reminding them that this is the chaos that we're working through right now.
I got you.
So, and I think there is a way to yeah, and Candace Owens has had like a complete 180. I don't know what's going on over there. We don't hear from her anymore. I mean, they abandoned her, and she don't know what to do anymore. So, I mean, I think there's a way that we can absolutely do this respectfully. And I think folks are attentive and engaged right now, because I've talked to plenty of Republicans that are like, well, what is going on? Veterans are being fired. You know, federal employees being fired arbitrarily. You know, funding for critical programs. And we were talking about this before, money for Ready Kids locally. I mean, people support organizations like Ready Kids. They do an important role in our community. They're doing thankless work with children that are impacted by traumatic events. And our congressmen won't explain why they're losing their congressional earmark. And those are the conversations that people need to be having. And again, Republicans are painting a good picture for us, because there's a lot to work with. And that's exactly why Congressman McGuire won't have a town hall in Charlottesville.
Yeah, and it's up to us to educate ourselves, because I feel like, Razor, to your point, I feel like that's us amplifying the qualifications, right? Because for all the people who said first black president, I'm gonna vote for President Obama, it was like there was to me, I believe there was a higher percentage of folks who said this is a qualified brother. And that's why I'm voting for him. Because we can look at like people like Herman Cain and other folks who've come up, and plenty of black people have been like, nah, I ain't voting for that dude, you know, even though he's black. You know what I mean?
Who's the housing secretary? Ben Carson. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, you know, So, you know, like, so there's been examples, but Jason, thank you. Thank you as always, man. Continue blessings and success until next time.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you.
Good job.
Expertise with us.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that, and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in this city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further, and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles.
Miss Mac.
Razor.
In the booth in the building one more again. We got a PC over here freezing, but how y'all doing? It's been a minute since we all three just sat down and had our normal structured dialogues, the segment the good people come to love.
Yeah.
What's on your mind?
And how we started to the whole community of Charlottesville as a whole, you know. So
appreciate that, good
I'm
brother.
I'm a fan.
Appreciate you, good brother, because they could be anywhere in the world. So could you, Razor, but you're here with us.
No, I had
Miss
something
Max.
to say today. I had to be here. Yeah.
What's on my mind? Do I get the same question?
Of course you do.
Boots on the ground.
We have played some boots on the ground for Miss Max. Miss Max at all.
Hey, she was a thug when we first started 9 years ago. Now she a country girl.
Boots on
Okay.
the ground.
Okay.
Miss Max, I don't care nothing about no election year.
Nope.
Y'all just throw some boots on the ground. Let me get my Beyonce fan.
Where my fan
Let
at?
me clap my fan.
Yes, indeed. That's funny. That's hilarious. That's what's up.
Oh, yes, indeed. But you know what, though? This is May, and we're going to be talking later about the mental health awareness, but it's also Mother's Day. So I'm going to give a happy Mother's Day to Miss Max. Shouts out to you.
Those mothers out there.
And all the moms. For sure.
It ain't
for
today,
sure,
is
for
it?
sure.
Okay, I hope
We
not.
got a
I'd
problem.
have forgot everything. Jesus, don't scare me like that, sir.
Yes, indeed. But you know, so I mean, Mother's Day theme. How about we do like a little Ask Max? What y'all think? Sound good to y'all?
Let's do it.
Because I've been
Ron
having
say play some sexy red in the background.
hey Ron, where you at, Shay Butter? Go ahead and call in. People want to hear from you.
Yeah.
But no, there is just like so many conversations that's been happening recently, leading up to this show. Folks have even said, you know what? I think that'd be a good Ask Max. One, because you know, like we are good at like sort of asking a question, especially in regard. But you know, superheroes have theme music. So
Yes,
let me
indeed.
go ahead and cue up the theme music, Max. Like I don't know if you want to put that on the headphones
Yeah.
or what.
I ain't heard it in a
Ain't
while.
heard it in a minute.
Let me hear it.
You're gonna hit them with a little something. Here we go, Miss Max. You got that?
I don't, but it's good.
You ain't got what?
Keep going.
What you doing over here, Razor?
All right.
He gonna.
It's
I
fine.
just got here and then caught the blame. Ain't nothing changed around here.
I thought Razor had my back. Like, you ain't nothing changed. You still ain't got my back.
I had your back, but you end up being behind me with the knife. How I'ma have your back and you stab me, Sir Joe?
Oh yeah, the questions. And we got a couple of them, you know, like since it's been a minute, why not hit them with a couple of the questions? So first one being because you know, people have sort of grown to love on how we question the establishment, I guess. Right. So even when it comes to this May, this holiday, how we love the moms and we shout out all the mothers. Yet you know how people always say everybody love mom, nobody care nothing about daddy.
That's
Father's
true.
Day come around, we recycling gifts.
That's
right, Miss Man. You got to answer for all the mamas today. No,
that is so true.
nah, but it's more about what does Mother's Day mean to you, Miss Max? Like that's the first Ask Max, because you know, like there's so many holidays, some mean more than other. We have the major federal holidays and all that stuff. People get time off work, all that kind of thing, you know. And you know, moms are special. Of course, you know, both parents play their part. Both parents are special in their own rights. But this is May. We're approaching Mother's Day. We want to acknowledge you, Miss Max. But as times change, because here's where that conversation comes from, Miss Max, is as you know, we've been talking about how times change a lot on this show and how we evolve and stuff. We've even had to ask Max about, do we still need to go to church? I don't know if y'all remember that. We talked about that because just less and less people are like going to church in the traditional manner, right? So even with Mother's Day always feeling so important. And so where are we there right now with this month of May coming up to Mother's Day? Like, how do you want to be celebrated? What is the significance of Mother's Day to a Miss Max in the year 2025?
Okay, ladies, I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try to do us justice here. So first of all, I have a number of adult children now who make adult money, who can give me an adult gift. So I look.
What's she trying to say?
I can hear Deja laughing right now.
So I look forward to making my little list of things that I want for Mother's Day, and my kids giving me those things. That is nice. It is nice to receive. you know. But you know what Mother's Day means to me. I'm gonna ramble a little bit. Sometimes it is a little hard for a mother to let her hair down and unwind and take and absorb the appreciation that she's being given, only because we spend so much time. We spend most every day of our lives in active mode of
That's right.
taken care of, and being called on for this or called on for that, and making sure everybody's straight and whatnot. So for me personally, it takes me a minute to be able to just bask in what the day is and meant to be. But I guess when it really all comes down to it, my grandmother used to tell me on Mother's Day, when I'd wish her a happy Mother's Day, and maybe ask her what she'd like to have. She would say, "Honey, all I want is your love and your respect. And if I got that, that's enough." And I think that that's I feel somewhat ill-equipped to answer this question, because I do believe maybe I haven't lived long enough to really give a solid answer, the type of answer I feel like I should have. But at this stage of the game anyway, if I get that from my children, because it is a rare commodity and it is valuable, for those of you who would disagree to both of those statements I just made, it is valuable. Those things mean the world. Those things mean the world. And when you raise, good children, I mean, they're a gift. They're a gift. The word tells us they are a gift. And you raise good children, and you see them doing well in life and making smart choices, and look at the endless potential in them, and sometimes wonder how they even came from you. It's a blessing.
That's true.
And so,
unless you got a full-time job, then Miss Max want that drip.
Yeah, that's right. That too. No, I want both. Give me both. They come together to make one
That's
whole.
funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I can say, and I'm curious what Razor has too, because I know this is, and I,
it's different.
It's definitely different,
it's
and apologies if this is a delicate moment. I
No,
know,
it's a good one.
But even with myself, like with my mother aging, and having that reality being forefront, like besides, health issues and stuff, that come along with it. They say boy's first love is his mama, or at least should be, right?
Yeah.
And so so that never goes away. And and just thinking about mother earth, right? Like all that moms give, like the way that they nourish and rear us and all that kind of thing. Like, I think that's why Mother's Day is one of those holidays that's never gonna fade, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I mean, because people change, people evolve, and thought processes. But I think when it comes to Mother's Day, like that's right up there with like with the biggest and the best of them.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
My mama's went on to glory, right? So Mother's Day is, when it comes to your mom, there's 3 days that cause you pain. That's her funeral, that's her birthday, and Mother's Day, right? So the first 2 years, like, I despised Mother's Day because I would see people not appreciating their mother, right? And then around about going on the halfway after that, I started understanding that, okay, regardless of where your mother is, what she's doing, here, not here, whatever, God saw enough in you to allow you to come through her. Now, if a person hasn't been discipled in order to be a loving, caring mother, a lot of times it has to do with their life that they led. They can't give you what they didn't have. You know what I'm saying? But that has nothing to do with the appreciation that you should have, that she was able to withstand 9 months of whatever she went through in order to allow God to put breath in your body. And because of
And
that,
raise you.
Well, not all mothers raise you. Not everybody's mother raised you. Some people get put up for adoption, never ever met their mom or whatever. But it does not change the fact that you spent The time that you spent before you entered this earth was spent with that person. And because of that, you should honor and love Mother's Day. That's me.
Better. Like that. Appreciate all that.
Yeah, no problem.
You know, Miss Max, like my mom would say the same thing in regards to like, you know, like I just want your presence and your love and whatnot. But then she'll be like, you know, but I would like a nice flapper
That's what
basket.
I'm saying. Hello, Miss Shirley.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah. Second thing that came up, like we said, we could go ahead on with two, and then, you know, try to get back to take a break and come back to the good conversation. But in the veins of Ask Max, here's another conversation that I had. And y'all got, I don't know if y'all experience the same thing, but usually when I have deep conversations with people, they always say, y'all should talk about that on the radio. I don't know if y'all experience that too, but so there's another one. So
all the time.
And Max, let me preface this, and Razor, you may be a little more familiar with her, maybe not, but there's a basketball star, right? By the name of Anthony Edwards for the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Lord Edwards.
Yeah, they call him Ant-Man. And so, like, based on his play, I gotta say he's one of my favorites right now. But then the brother hurt me though. The brother hurt me though by some of his one action in particular.
Why?
So
talk to him.
So number one, he has multiple baby mothers. Ain't really faulting him much for that. Don't know the brother's personal story and relationship experience and whatnot. But here's the one that got me, and this is why this fits into an Ask Max Mother's Day type of segment. In particular, that so he was in a serious relationship with a female, got another female pregnant. This side relationship, if you will, that he got pregnant. He gave her like, I forget the exact amount, but I want to say $100,000 for an abortion and to leave me alone. Right, we're done. You know, kind of go enjoy yourself money. He kept the child and kept the money
and moved to California where she could get more money.
And you know more than I do. So
I heard.
so afterwards, Anthony Edwards then goes to court with her and pays based on his, you know, current and I guess maybe projected salary, $1.8 million to say this is 18 years worth. Now y'all leave me alone. So my question to the mothers out there, is there a figure big enough, because apparently there's something there is, for a man who is otherwise capable not to be a father? Does financially providing replace the presence of a father?
Is that for me?
I mean, like, no, let's let you close it out if you don't mind. Let me and Razor talk for a man to man. Mano.
Turn my mic up, please.
Because Razor, here's my thing. I'm kicking you in back. This is my thing. It's like, nah, and to me, no, absolutely not. Like that hurt because I'm like, man, this is a young brother. He about to be the face of the league, superstar. But bro, like you're gonna need to learn some discipline. You're gonna need to learn some sexual discipline because you got 5. And if you feel like, oh man, like I make the money, I got the freedom, I can do what I want, then be a father of your child. Like this ain't a judgment call about somebody's morality when it comes to their sexual prowess. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the simple fact of you made a child. You tried to abort that said child. That did not happen. Still flesh of your flesh, blood of your blood. I feel like, brother, that's something spiritually you're gonna have to carry. You may see this child, you may be out, see a young man that look just like you. And it's gonna run through your mind, is that my son?
And Michael Jordan do it all the time.
But that's still questionable. That is not excusable. To me as a man, even as a man, right? Our core, like what I believe we both consider a strong man, right? It's like you down your sword. It's like you take responsibility, you learn, you man up. You know, we always say you man up. So me personally, it's like, brother, like I want to root for you. And maybe I can't on the basketball court, but now that's always stuck in my mind. It's like you're making that choice not to be a father to your child, bro. Regardless of how the child got here, that's your child.
Is it my turn?
It's your turn.
Okay. I couldn't disagree with you more.
Okay.
All right. And this is why. Okay. There are too many children running around here that were not wanted. You know what I'm saying? And if that young lady had decided to have the abortion, then that was in her right. My body, my choice, right? But what he had the ability to do was say, okay, I tried to not have this child walk around without a father figure. my body is my choice. I don't want this child. So I'm willing to pay for you. You know, we did things. She older than him. She way older than him. She like 38. He like 20 some years old, right?
And that's a discussion for another show too.
No, that's like a discussion for this show right here,
like
right?
how all the older women doing stuff that if a man would do it, they be caught out like crazy.
That's what I'm saying. But at the same time, let's just talk about the right to bring a child into this world or not bring a child. I do not understand why that goes strictly to the woman. If he says, I do not want this child, I want nothing to do with this child. It may be the fact of she has a beautiful face, beautiful body, but everything I know about you, your family, your mental history is not what I want in my child walking around this earth. A lot of women need to understand that. I don't want what I see in you and what you made of to be part of my legacy. So he has the money to be able to say, look, let's do this responsibly now. No different than if he had gave her a plan, whatever that pill is. Yeah, whatever that pill is. Did we do it? He'll take this pill so that we don't have nothing. He just paid, the pill ended up costing him $1.8 million now because she decided to pack up, go to California where she could get more money. Her moves were strategic. Now she want the judge to make him sign the papers so that, you know, when he passed away, the child is liable to get his estates and stuff like this. This was a money grab. I don't care what she's talking about, but I got a rich baby daddy. That's your MO. He just was able to end it right then and there. It's based off of what he make now, not his projected salary. So he closed it out right now. So to me, he did the most responsible thing that he could do, because the worst thing that he was trying to avoid was having this child always looking at his daddy on TV and not being there and not being in his life. But in the reality of it, he never wanted him, and he tried to solve the problem. So I got to give it to him.
Razor, if he was driving, gas at 0, and he passing gas stations, and then he run out of gas, guess what? That's still his car, and that's still his fault.
Did he rape her?
Not that I know of.
That's what I'm saying. So while it's his responsibility, it's also hers. What is the best thing for the child? Is it good for me to bring a child in this world that is not wanted, to the point that this man paid me twice?
But we passed that, though. My point.
How's we passed it? That's the problem. We got this thing where we can't tell women when they mess up.
No, I feel you. So check it out, though. What I'm saying is, I'm saying saying neither side is noble, in my opinion.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is that we're past the part of conception.
Yeah. Child here.
And like, you were man enough to make that choice.
You're man enough to make child.
So in my purview, however the cards like fell, you are now not man enough to take care of your responsibility. That's still your responsibility at the end of the day.
Okay. Do you believe in adoption?
Yes, of course.
So if you believe in, I'm just saying, if you believe in adoption, then you believe that it's okay for parents to give up a child to a better place. So whether I give them up in any form or fashion, I'm walking away from them, right? So if she was to then in turn give the child up for adoption and the child went to a good home, we would be campaigning that the responsible thing was done. You know what I'm saying? So it's no different. We decide how we want to look at things. If you're going to give up the child, regardless, you're giving up the child. You're saying that just because he has money, we're looking at him like he should step up. Because he has fame, we're looking at it like, look, you should campaign for your son because you can provide for him a good life. He just gave that woman over $1 million. If she's saying it's not enough. So the problem really is that this young lady, in her quest for financial stability, has made this child's life hard. And we're looking at him because he is Anthony Edwards.
And you're right. Some people are looking at it that way. I'm not looking at it that way.
Right.
Like, I'm looking at it
doesn't make yours
like
wrong.
This is an able-bodied man who is making a choice that me as another man, like if I was his brother, I would be in his ear saying why I didn't agree with it.
Right. Yeah. But at the end of the day, he has the right to say, no, I told her I didn't want the child. I was having fun. Like, being responsible is saying what his faults were. Man, I should have wrapped up. I shouldn't have did this. I shouldn't have did, but I did. So I told her I don't want the child. She decided to tell me she was going to have the child. She told me she took the $100,000. So I'm sure she told him she was going to take care of whatever that discussion was. Then she moved to the West Coast where child support was higher. The problem is her.
It's tough.
It's not tough. The problem is her. But we got this thing where we can't tell, especially our sisters, we can't tell you when you messed up without being called a narcissist. And some stuff is just narcissist behavior.
Yeah.
Not that you're a narcissist.
Now, see, I feel you. And like I said, I disagree with both sides in this situation, the man and the woman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But Ms. Max.
Things happen.
Close it out, Ms. Max.
Yeah. What say you?
I have a whole lot to say about it. I mean, bullet point response. It sounds like this kid has in some way or another learned, maybe through his fame and success as a professional sports player, that money can be the answer to all problems. And as sure as he lives, continues to live on this earth, he will run into situations where money is not the answer. So it's, that lesson is coming, but this is unfortunate, but I think it speaks. I personally think it's just an atrocity. That you would decide that effectively this is him aborting his child. When you are an able-bodied individual who can rear your child and be present in their life, and then choose not to. It is the form of abortion, and I think that it speaks to an issue that not just Anthony Edwards and this girl is dealing with, but an issue that is nationwide, worldwide, and that is the devaluing of human life, in my humble opinion.
The kid's the victim.
I think that there is no amount of money that replaces an able body and fully able person from raising their child. You can't substitute that. There's no price value you can put on that, because it doesn't teach them. They can't get love, affection, connection, and those things that happen that can't be explained and can't be seen, that transpire between a child and the individual that they come from.
But he don't want him. I think that's the part I didn't.
But he made him know. That's my point, though.
I wouldn't want.
Like, you ain't got a choice, bro. It's like, man,
my daddy didn't want me, I wouldn't want to be around him.
Cool,
like,
but that's still a flaw, though.
And then we talking about, we getting ready to have a mental health show. What is it like? I don't know, right? My parents loved me. What would it be like to walk in front of a person that does not love you and does not want you?
No, I understand.
I don't want to be around.
I understand that the point that you're making, but the thing is that this is a choice. He is choosing to not want him for no other reason than the extra weight. That to me, you can't explain that. You can't make that make sense.
I didn't think he want her. That's when I heard the
and
story.
That's cool too.
He didn't want her, so he didn't want nothing to do with her.
Right. Well, I understand that too, but there ought to be, and I think it speaks to a lot of issues that might be going on in this young man's life and how he was raised, that you even have the ability to say, yes, that's blood of my blood, but I don't want it for no reason that I don't want it. Like life don't work like that, That's tough.
I think he did go through that though. Like, I'm not sure that they know who his dad really is. Like LeBron. Not everybody did what LeBron did. You know what I'm saying? But there's a difference between me not growing up with my father, be it my mom didn't want my dad around because he didn't take her or whatever, and somebody saying, I do not want you to the point that I will pay twice to not have nothing to do with you. You don't want, I wouldn't want that.
That says a lot, but I mean, to all the current fathers out there, this is a lesson of what it looks like.
That's right.
When your kids grow, to when you don't have, when your kids grow up without a present father in their life, they grow up to become fathers who don't want to be present in their kids' lives as well. I mean, I think that happens more often than not.
It does.
I think that honestly, people, young boys and young girls who grow up in this situation, tell themselves, promise themselves, think about how they will become adults and do and not be like that. I want to be the furthest thing away from that. I'm going to be present in my kid's life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And some follow through with that, but they're the vast majority. I would argue do not.
Yeah, because it's in them. Every child is, well, like, for lack of a better word, now women, please don't say nothing to me. God made women to where they're like a incubator of sorts. So the man gives you the seed, you incubate it, bring it into a child, bring it into existence, bring it to a person, right? So when you see a man that does not take care of his children and you decide to have a child with that man, that DNA that did not take care of him is in him. And it gets passed on from generation to generation to where it is a flaw in that person that does not want to. I don't care what is said. That is in your child, that is in your baby daddy, your husband, whatever, right? It's just who they are as a person. Their intention cannot override DNA. A leopard cannot change his stripes.
Well,
in
what
my
I hope
opinion,
is this man is young enough where there's time. Time to change his mind, time to look at this differently, time to decide that the right thing to do is to be present for my child, at least.
Karl Malone didn't do it.
Oh,
Michael
and he was
Jordan
a
didn't do
pedophile.
it.
And he was
you
a
know
pedophile.
what I'm saying?
Like, so Karl Malone got layers.
Yeah, and he right. That's what I'm saying. That's what's in him. And that's what's in that child, and it's not going to change. It's in their
vice
DNA.
versa, Razor as well. And I think Max was alluding to this a couple minutes ago, which is just like you said about like what you're looking at in a partner. Like some people believe soul ties is a real thing, right?
Yeah,
and so
100%.
so ultimately, like my point is that, bro, you were big and bad enough to lay down with this woman and to conceive a child for whatever reason, because she was a baddie, she had a fatty, whatever the case is, right?
Yeah.
So, but remember, this could potentially be the consequence. And so however you're weighing your option in that moment, you got to be real, just like you said. With who you laying down with, that's going to be the byproduct.
You're asking them to look past what God created. God put men here to reproduce. That's why it takes women 9 months.
That's why men here.
No. I'm talking about this craziness. No, just hear me out. Just hear me out for a second.
Okay, we're going to hear you out.
All right. So by the way the male and female is constructed, right? In the 9 months that it takes the female to bring a child to life, a man can almost populate half of the world, right? That's just.
Are you talking from a scientific
from
perspective?
a scientific,
Okay,
not what you should be or shouldn't be doing, right?
Okay.
From a scientific, that is what is in there. That's where the excitement comes from. That's where puberty starts. That's when you start to see all these changes in boys and girls, right? But the difference is when everybody play grown-up games, the young lady is stuck with the responsibility of those actions, and the man can become the wanderer, even if he's at the house across the street, and still do all these things that cause hurt, harm to his legacy, to his community, to that young lady that trusted him. You know what I'm saying? That's just scientific, the way the body is constructed. That's what I mean by that part. Now, getting back to the question, I personally feel like he did the best job for that young, is it a boy or girl?
Boy.
That young boy's future by not, the young boy's gonna say my dad didn't want me, but that's a difference than somebody looking in your face that don't want you. And if he didn't want the woman,
I'm not convinced of that.
I got you.
And maybe he did. Maybe he did the best job for where he is right now.
That's what I mean. That's
but
what
I'm
I
not
mean.
convinced.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, we don't.
There's
but
no more to
if he don't want to deal with the mama, the easiest way for him to make sure of that was to pay her off. And then when the boy get older, if he decide or the boy decide that they want to have a relationship, it's not excluding the mama so altogether, but he don't have to deal with her. Every time he do better in life, her hand ain't out taking him to court. Every time she get mad at him because she not with him, she not taking him to court. Like he ain't got to deal with none of that. And that's the part that we're not also talking about. Like, there is a atmosphere that has been built around the court system, especially dealing with Black men and their children and going to court, that to fix a failed relationship, women will put their children and that man on the slave block. It's no different. And they will tell you how much the man and the child is worth in order to stay out of jail. But nobody wants to have that conversation. Right?
So then why do we stay for the kids? Because we hear that a lot too.
Because that's you.
Like, stay for
there
kids.
There are people that say, man, no, my dad didn't give me what I needed. I'm gonna try to give my son the best opportunity in life. Like, that's your integrity as a person. And you might not have got that from your daddy. You might got that from your mama. You know what I'm saying? You might see her struggling and doing what you got to do and going without. And, you know, some women working 4 jobs, some women selling their body. They just trying to make it happen. Right? You might have got that from your mom, your willingness to stay with your child, even though you don't want that woman. You might have got that from your mama, because that's the part that she gave you. You know,
but I'm talking about we more so we seem to celebrate more. And if we contrast these two conversations, right, you know, Anthony Edwards and just the general family structure. Majority of the time, people are going to say, whatever you're going through, work it out because you need to be there for your child. But then in this instance, like when it's a single man and a single woman, they were like, oh, the choice is yours. And then the child is just left there. And then the child is just the pawn, just the victim left out there because the adults are making bad choices and picking and choosing when we want to be there for our child.
But why are we judging this 26-year-old man by the same level that we judging this 38-year-old woman that should be giving them insight? It's another.
But that's not my point. That's not my point, though. What I'm saying is,
but it should be.
Let's say that they were married, and then people would be like, "Okay, well, you done with her, but you still need to be there for your child."
Well, you made a pact in front of God, right? You made a pact in front of God. So, not getting too biblical or nothing, but you stood before God and say, "No, I'm willing to go through life with this person."
Right, but I don't want to miss my point though. Like my point though is still, in some instances, people say stay for the children because they need both of you. That's the better circumstance overall, regardless of everything y'all going through as a family. But then on the flip side, we then out of the same mouth will say, well, no, like that's a single man. He just want to throw the girl money up front and go about his life. That's cool. So then why ain't it better for the child for the daddy to be there? Because it's still a child. It goes
back to what you said, the family dynamic.
But it's still a child. So my point is we're talking about all this like surrounding stuff. Like we're talking about all the aesthetics and we're forgetting the child. We're talking about how bad the mom is, the rights of the daddy, but we're forgetting the child needs the parenting. That's all I'm saying.
Max, what you think? I think if you're not going to get
at the end of the day, you got two individuals who created a child together. Okay. How much do that bank account matter in that? How much does his profession matter in that?
You got to ask the woman.
No, how much does his profession matter in that?
None.
When it comes down to it, you got two individuals who created a child and who are both, for all intents and purposes, capable of being present in this child's life and raising this child. That is all that really matters.
Is it possible that they made a mistake?
Matters.
Like we always talk about in society how when you make a mistake, you're not held by that for the rest of your life.
They could have made a mistake.
Could say, no, I'm just saying.
No, let's say they made a mistake.
They made a mistake by not protecting themselves.
How important is that to making sure that they are both present in their child's life?
Max, I'm still stuck on the part of that boy don't want that child around him. So I'm more leaning towards the fact of one hurt of my daddy doesn't want me is different than daily hurt of me saying like what can I do to make you happy?
Yeah, I do.
I can't get past like that's my thing, and that's where I'm standing.
Like I do understand that. Why subject a child to a parent who does not want them?
Yeah,
I do get that. But I think I still also believe that this kid himself is making a decision based on his limited knowledge, based on whatever his background is, based on what he did and didn't get in life. And so is it possible that, yes, it's a mistake, but it's also a mistake to make this decision because I just don't know any better?
What if he don't want the white man telling him what to do with his child?
Don't know any.
telling me what to do with my son. I don't want nobody telling me.
And it's okay to feel like that. It don't matter.
It do
when
matter.
It come down to it.
It do matter.
It do if you choose for it to.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. His mindset, I think, is going to be more abusive to that child than his presence.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm trying to say. I think that because of how he views life, take away money, anything. Money gave him the access to pull himself away.
Mm-hmm.
I think how he views life, be it whatever reason it is more detrimental to him being around a child that he does not want than us simply saying, he's a dad, step up. You made this decision. It's crucial to y'all being here. Because I know guys personally that cannot stand the fact that they have to go through the court system and allow, most of the time it's white judges, men judges, to tell them how much their child is worth, how often he can see him. If it
consequences of action, bro.
I understand. So his consequence was, I'm going to take out of my bank account the things I like to do, and I'm going to give this to you. I gave you hush money in the first time. You didn't want it. I'm going to show you.
That's a naive and immature.
He's a boy. He's a young boy with a grown woman that had
But what does that have to do with him having a child?
I don't think he had the discipleship to understand that.
Like, I mean, you know, it happens more times than not where we have these athletes or people who step on us, are suddenly famous, who don't have the mentorship or counseling or support or what have you that they need to be able to function in their new setting. And then that coupled with whatever trauma that they dealt with as a kid, issues they dealt with as a kid that they have never made sense of. So they in a lot of ways left to their own devices and making a lot of decisions that are just at the end of the day wrong. That 5 years from now, 10 years from now, he may believe are wrong.
I think
that is more of the problem.
I think he's wrong. But I think that he made the best decision for where he is now to not give that child more trauma. Because he's telling the world he don't want that child. I'd never really heard that. I seen dudes that weren't there. I seen, how many women.
He's being selfish.
Oh yeah, absolutely, 100%. Her too. They both are.
All right, Miss Max.
All right,
close this out. Let's agree to disagree sometimes.
Yeah.
You ain't always got to be right.
I'm always right, even when I'm wrong, because I could have been right even when I was wrong.
I'm not trying to be right. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, who are we talking to?
None other than Gene Cash.
There we go. Gene Cash. Come in here and get razor right, Gene. Come in here and get razor right.
I hope he's not listening. Gene don't give me no slack.
It shouldn't. We'll be right back.
We live in a society in which structural racism is a very real thing. We are all dealing with that in every aspect of our lives, and the media is a reflection of our community.
Historically, black people have been portrayed a certain way in the media to justify normative assumptions around political and social issues.
More black people behind the cameras, in front of the cameras, more producers, more people of color producing, so they can go and get the content that's needed so they can highlight our attributes.
I've been in this industry for 15 years, and I've seen firsthand how our voices just aren't heard. Even if you're in the newsroom, sometimes you get completely ignored and stereotypes are allowed to perpetuate. And one thing we want to do is combat that and also bring information to people so they can be as informed as possible when choices are made in the city, so they can do whatever they can to get their voices heard.
What I believe can be done about the situation is to have more people of color creating news stories, more people who have a interest in and a social consciousness that relates to the stories that they're telling.
Charlottesville Tomorrow looks at these issues. We can present them on IMHO. Vinegar Hill Magazine can take that a step further. and just together we can just make this thing that can be an example of how we can change the media landscape, how we can be more inclusive to get these voices in, to get these people heard. That's just one thing that doesn't happen in so many places, and it's a shame.
We think we live in a society that's very progressive, and we're talking about equity and diversity and inclusion and all these things. Still, the way that black people, and I would say, and I would argue, especially black men, are portrayed by the media is incredibly dangerous, and you've seen the sort of tangible violence that it's led to over the past year.
The community can support the SIM project by first and foremost giving us an opportunity. We understand that it can be difficult to give trust right now, especially considering the current social and political environment. But this project will only be as successful as the community allows it to be. And so we ask you to give us the opportunity to do the work, critique the work, and make sure that we stay in line with the vision. Another way that the community can get behind the SIM project is through engagement. We want to hear from you. We want to know what you're talking about. We want to put your stories out there. And so whether it's reading the articles written by Charlottesville Tomorrow or Vinegar Hill Magazine, or tuning in to In My Humble Opinion on Sundays on 101.3 Jams from noon to 3 p.m., either way, we want you engaged. We want you to be part of this. The community can also support the SIM project through funding. To learn more about how to support SIM, you can visit our website. Thank you for your support.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis, only on 101.3 Jams.
Oh, okay. Got you. I want some headphones too.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
We've been in here fighting.
Yeah.
Try to the ism,
Throwing bows.
to the ism, to the talk show. Right back like we never left. Sir Charles.
For the people who heard that last segment.
It's right. WVI 101 Jams is the flagship station, and I'm just giving the people what we want, what they want per usual.
Yeah.
Like I try to make sense of things. Razor want to be stubborn about it.
Yeah, Razor's Razor.
Miss Max try to be
what it is.
a mediator until Razor get under her skin. So ain't nothing changed. It's been this way for about 8 years now.
Yeah. No, 9. Man.
Oh yeah,
January 1st was 9.
Shoot, yeah, you're right. 2016.
Yeah.
That's right. The longest running
Silence
show
is an answer.
Yeah.
on this here station. Good stuff. So, as we stated, May, amongst a bunch of things, as we've coming off sort of a mother's theme talk, we also are aware that this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and so we thought it would, make sense to bring back an old friend that's always on the battlefield for our mental well-being, particularly when it comes to that of Black folks, the African Americans. Like this brother, I believe Razor introduced this, matter of fact, those years ago when we first started on this journey. But this brother is someone who's unapologetic when it comes to the well-being of our Blackness, right? And our Black selves. And I can't thank the brother enough, for using his esteemed platform to do that. So none other than Mr. Gene Cash, Executive Director over at Counseling Alliances of Virginia. Mr. Cash, how you been, man?
I am doing well, Charles. I am doing very well, and I'm honored. I just love watching you guys.
Appreciate
you.
Did you see that math? Did you see that?
I love it.
Please tell me you went to the bathroom.
No, bro, I was sitting there like, yeah, okay, what's going on?
Oh,
Right.
No, it's just love. I just love it. I love you guys, and I appreciate you having me on this afternoon. So
yeah,
yes, indeed, always. So it is mental health awareness, but I think wouldn't it make sense to get Gene's opinion?
Oh, absolutely.
So Gene, I'm not sure like where you I'm not sure like where you came in on that last conversation to ask Max when we were talking about things, including the question of is there enough money to replace parenting, right? And we kind of stemmed from the Minnesota Timberwolves Anthony Edwards news that's out there about having 4 kids that he apparently is involved in their lives, but came across one of his baby mothers that he did not want a future with, and also included not wanting a future with that child. So paid 18 years up front of child support after already giving her money for an abortion and extra money for herself. She kept the child, but then he still said, nope, I do not want to be in you all's lives, so take this money and get away from me. What is the impact potentially, on the well-being, the mental health of said individuals?
Oh man, I think there's a huge impact on all levels, from Anthony to the woman who had his child, and down to the child. I believe the impact, because money does not cure everything. The emotional attachments, the loss, the abandonment, the rejection, on all levels. And I'm curious where Anthony gets that from. I'm really worried about how I saw a little bit about this, and I think about I'm curious around how he was raised and the impact of his environment that put him in this position. And I always go back to post-traumatic slave syndrome. I think we got to pay attention to where we come from. And Willie Lynch keeps lynching, and this sounds like a lynching in a way. And I worry about the child and the impact that it's going to have. And there's elements of the mother, the impact around her and her decision making. So it's a real complex, guys.
Gene, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, I think I was about to ask what I think you're gonna ask.
Now, I don't know if you're gonna ask this one, y'all, but I'll go ahead. Is it possible that he came from a single family home that he did not like the way that his mother was. So a lot of times boys end up dating women that remind them of women in their life. So when he saw things that could possibly remind him of his mom or the way he grew up, he didn't want to have nothing to do with that. And that's why he exit stage left.
That's very plausible.
Anything's
That is very plausible. You
understand what I'm saying? With as many families as women have to raise on their own, there are a lot of, I cut hair for 1,000 years. There are a lot of young men who are grown men now who did not have their fathers present, that they love their mamas, but they did not like their mamas. And I don't think women actually know how high that number is. So when you find somebody that reminds you of your trauma, that talked about your daddy, that made you her boyfriend of sorts because she couldn't keep a man, a lot of boys, and I know this firsthand because of how long I cut hair, do not like their moms. They love their moms.
I think, Razor, I believe that's I think everyone has a different story. Everyone has a different narrative, have a different path. I believe that is very plausible. I see it. I definitely see men who, my caseload, I know I have a young male that loves his mother, will do anything for her. However, with the annihilation of the Black man way back in generation, in our history, it put us in a difficult situation with mothers and sons. And the imposter syndrome that our sons that we grow up with, our internalized devaluation of not feeling good enough. I believe definitely that could be that definitely could cause that.
Yeah.
So then a question I was going to bring it that I thought Razor was going with it.
Now you talk with sense. I don't got no sense.
No, but it was actually something. It was something that Razor said earlier, which which does make sense as well. When Razor posed, what if the child is better off, like without a father in his life that does not want him?
Oh, guys, what you're all saying is all real. They're all options. It's never either or. It's a both and. And to feel rejection from someone who doesn't want you, and to have a potential stepfather or somebody come in and to heal that wound is very helpful, because you never want to have constant devaluation, constant dehumanization, not being wanted or being alienated. So yes, and I think that's what comes in some ways. The foster care system, I struggle with some of the things that happen in it. But I learned that sometimes being a Black male therapist, I may be the only person in that kid's life that's been stable with him ever since he's been in foster care. So I'm not his father, right? However, I am filling a void or putting things around him that could really support that. So yes, taking a child away from somebody who doesn't want them is an option, right? And it's helpful, but it's a both end. It depends on the person and the environment. I hope that makes sense. I lost your audio. I can't hear you guys.
Check. Okay, can you hear me?
There we go. I got you back now. Yeah.
That was probably on me because we're having a little difficulty with one of these computers here.
Gotcha.
So I'm gonna try to keep you on here and get rid of this one camera. But Gene, so we're just saying that we're May 2025.
Yes.
Right. And another mental health awareness month. What has changed? What is the same? What is your focus and your team's focus this year as you approach educating people on the importance of mental health once again?
Charles, it's like Black history to me, right? It's every damn day. It's every day. Mental health is every day to me. So I appreciate everyone who makes it a special month, but for me, it's every day. And I think one of the initiatives that I'm really pushing at Kava is, and I haven't really talked about it much, but in my clinical work, I'm hoax or no hoax. The Willie Lynch letter impacts our mental health a lot, right? And if you haven't read the Willie Lynch letter, if you don't know what it is, Google it, and
that's right.
Start reading up on it. And when I'm looking as how in my mental health, when the work that we're talking about, Willie Lynch was about making how to make a slave, right? And I believe it's been turning on its axis for 400, 500 years.
Mm.
And when we come to post-traumatic slave syndrome, something the DSM or the APA, American Psychological Association, doesn't really put the stamp on it, I still really believe it impacts our community. So one of the things around Willie Lynch letter is to create fear, right? Create distrust in us not trusting each other, white people not trusting us, but then also to create envy, right? And that tears our community up. I was literally in a restaurant last week, and I tried to order some food, and what I watched was our Black community implode in the middle of the restaurant. And it was just sad to watch the Black manager, the Black person ordering something, and then the Black young lady cashier. They were all going at each other. And all I could think about is like the internalized hate that we carry inside of us. So when I think about that, because I'm really pushing around, how do you make a man? How do you rehumanize our mental health? And so, and you can't see it on this shirt, but our new shirt is talking about love one another, trust with courage, and admire and appreciate. I think those are things that I'm really pushing, especially in my couples work, when I have the Black woman and the Black man who are struggling to create a strong hierarchy, to create cohesion and connection in their relationships and marriage. Pay attention to our intergenerational transmission of trauma. And so that's my push, and I'm pushing all my therapists, white, Black, and Latino, start paying attention to how their history of race and racism impacts how they do the work. So that's where I'm at this month, every day.
Yeah. Now, our current political climate, like, you have to feel justified, right, in your approach, because I can only imagine that, Gene, you probably go into some spaces, like, with your colleagues, and they question your approach. I gotta imagine that, on like, why do you have to focus on on a specific like race group, right? Like, why is that so important? But then here we are in 2025, and I think most people in the past would not have expected our social issues to be the way that they are, as related to being multicultural, right? To still have to question whether or not there should be equity and inclusivity for people that are different. But we are facing that. So so how is the current political climate, right? Our current social constructs affecting your work? Like, is it giving you a little more of a bravado when you come in the room now? You're like, see, I told y'all.
Sometimes, yeah. To be honest with you, sometimes I told you this was not leaving, right? But to be truthful with you, it's scary. I'll be honest with you when I talk about race and I think about all the elements and all the things, because when it comes to white supremacy and white domination, it's like a wallless prison. You don't really see where it's coming from sometimes. And as a business owner and me talking about white supremacy, I may have an auditor come from the state just out of nowhere, or my revenue could be impacted just out of nowhere. Was it really from nowhere, or is it because I continue to talk about race? And so my colleagues they're losing business. They're not able to have the contracts, or the contracts are being minimized. And I appreciate when people say conservative, when people say political climate, and I always say this is white supremacy, white domination, and racism. This has been going on for years. This is just like, it just repeats itself. So it's challenging, and it's fearful when these executive orders come out, but I have to stay steadfast I believe that you got to name it. You got to see it first.
Yeah.
You got to name it, and then you got to change it. But if you don't see it, and if you don't name it, you definitely cannot change it. And they're asking us to be quiet. They're asking us not to name it, not to say it, or to call it something that what it's not.
Gene,
Yes,
what
sir.
do we do when we understand that the supremacy is operating, but the face of it is black?
Oh shoot, hold on. What you talking about?
Well,
What you talking about?
I mean, let's just say we're broadcasting it out of the Charlottesville area, right?
Sir.
And here is pretty much the birthplace of America. So anything that going in America pretty much started here. That's why it's so hard to dismantle. That's why people felt comfortable coming down here in the summer of hate, right?
Oh yeah.
But there was a huge push to get melanated skin, and this is in Razor's Humble Opinion. This has nothing to do with the show. This is mine totally. Max Charles have nothing to do with what I'm about to say. There was a huge push to get melanated skin in power positions since that time. Now, even before that time, we had melanated positions, but especially since that time, we got melanated people in certain positions. But in my belief, the system is still the system, so that it just has a different face to it, because a person has a right to aspire to a high position because they have worked hard enough to get that job, but they can only do what the system allows them to do. They try to make the best of the situation, but they have to make it operate. If they can't make it operate, they get ousted. Now, you have the regular black community, black and brown community, coming to these people looking for help because they look like them. But then they realize that that person really can't help them because the system isn't set that way. We had a lady on here, jumping subject, Charles. Do you remember the lady came on here that said when they were teaching people how to read or whatever, they had grouped all the black and brown people into either non-white people to become non-American? We're talking about black people that have been here their whole entire lives that aren't trying to get citizenships. They label these people that have reading issues as non-white Americans.
Really?
To be able to get money from the government to fund them. So they have to group the black people in with the Hispanic people and the other nations that come here that don't even speak English. And now black people are labeled into that. That's here in Charlottesville. We had the lady on here and she told us that's how they label us now. So how do you operate when you're dealing with white supremacy, but the face is black?
Wow, Raze, that's a complex question for me. When the face is black, right? Because when I first go to, all skin ain't kin. I always say that, right? And I believe that white supremacy is, and white domination is around, I think you're right, the system, right? Because coming from up north, a different type of plantation that we came from, and coming down south to watch it operate, the system of white supremacy has been alarming to me, right? Because we always pay attention to people living in racial oblivion. And really, in essence, racial oblivion is really about assimilation, right, to whiteness. They're just going to operate just as if slavery and Jim Crow and all that continues to happen, right? And what we need to have happen is our own black people, right? Start looking at becoming more racially aware, racially sensitive, racially responsible, right? So when we do have racist attitudes, values, and beliefs that run the system, that we're able to intervene and interrupt them. Because I bump up against white, but my own people who like, Gene, why do you keep bringing up race? Why do you keep talking about it? Just let it go. I mean, I hope I'm answering your question.
Not to where I understand it. I'm sure that you are, but I guess what I'm looking at for the listener, because I've learned.
Go for it. Help me out.
I've learned how to maneuver in rooms. Not everybody can do that. A lot of people that think that they're maneuvering in the rooms end up being the focal point. You know, you come into the room and you are automatically the one that needs help. You know what I'm saying?
Because you're black.
Right. Regardless.
Right.
So I play dumb all the time, Gene. I do it all the time where people think like, why would you do this? And why would you say that? What? Because I can get deeper in closer to the nucleus if people think that they have to help the dark-skinned black man with the record, right? They don't see you coming as long as you play what they think you're supposed to be.
I told you for years, people didn't know I owned Kava.
I know.
Yeah.
We had the conversation.
You know, in order to be able to secure the contract, to secure finances and revenue, right? We had to play like, well, if you take it like that, what about Shadur Sanders? I believe that was a huge buck breaking.
Bring that up.
Yeah, it was huge to dehumanize and devalue this young, successful father, son, and to tell him stay in place.
Shut up and dribble.
Shut up and dribble. Exactly. So it's hard to get off the plantation when the plantation still operates and it just looks different.
And Gene, you know the big difference there, though. Actually, before I even go there, let's stick a pin right there on Shadur, because I'm sure there's some people that may be glazing over right now, or may even be getting offended. Like, man, this is real, sort of like black white heavy. But here's something I think a lot of people don't understand. Like, everybody knows that the hit movie right now is movie Sinners, and it's creating a lot of dialogue, right? And like a few things, like 3 things that came out of it were like these documentaries that were told that Ryan Coogler pulled some of his inspiration from, right? One, so pretty much, like to encapsulate it without me like belaboring the point, to encapsulate it, it's like people forget that when we're talking about white and black, what race is a social construct, right? And so what white supremacy created and has bled into most of the world is that to be white is right. Like white is the epitome. And the way that we do it is the way everybody else should try to do it. Regardless of who you are, your culture, blah, blah, forget all that. If you want to be successful, you act like this, right? And so like, that's what we're really fighting against. So I want people to understand that it's not about you as a person, like your spirit, your being. It's about this social construct that is white supremacy. And here's my final example there on the point I'm making is that Irish people, like let's say 1930s, right? There was a widely used term called Black Irish, right? Irish people weren't even considered white. And what they did was they were able to assimilate, they were able to pass, they were able to become part of the structure, and then could identify themselves as white. Fast forward to today. And we talked about this, Razor. Like, we have a heavy immigrant population in this area now. And those who can classify as white, they do. And they do because, again, that is what we're taught, is that you should want to be this.
Right.
This is the way you should act. This is what you should identify as. And that is what, in my opinion, my humble opinion, that's what the Trump administration is carrying out, whether we want to say it's from Project 25 or whatever. They are trying to erase diversity, equity, and inclusion and say this is the standard.
I know, and I say this in the most respectful way because not everybody is this way, but I know of black guys who have purposely had kids with white women and want their kids to find white counterparts, right? To have a better avenue to success in life. You know what I'm saying? Now I know anybody can find love anywhere, and I'm not saying that, people, but I know personally of black guys who purposely went after white women to have kids in order to give their children a better life.
Yeah. And Gene, the reason that I bring all that up because I want to wrap it back around to the mental well-being, right? The mental health of all of this. Like, what goes through the mind, right? Like, what, or maybe like, how can we better inform people? How can we help people's, I guess, processing of this, right? To be comfortable within themselves and to feel like I can be myself and still be successful, right? Like, I don't have to assimilate to a system that I don't even agree with, but I feel like the only way I can survive is if I assimilate.
I think one of the things, like when you said if it might be getting too white, black heavy, one, I really decenter whiteness. I'm not really worried about them as far as whiteness. I'm not. And I think they need to get more comfortable with being white and their ancestry of dehumanization and devaluation. So that's one. And then one of the things when you made me bring up is around the psychological homelessness. We all walk in. And also, I like that you're saying it's a white supremacy ideology, right? It's not about just white people, but it's the mindset. I'm reading Waking Up White and just listing how white people were indoctrinated to be white, to be able to think about hating another person, to be able to think about to be a bystander and watch someone else being dehumanized, right? So I just think about all the wounds that we all carry. I think Ken and I, we go back and forth around, Dr. Hardy, back and forth around, does white supremacy impact white people? And I think it does, right? But as far as us, this level of psychological homelessness, like Ray's is talking about, this brother who wants to impregnate a white woman and have his white kids assimilate to whiteness, that is all psychological wholeness. His soul, his assaulted sense of self was damaged from birth. Like I told you, I wrote, my mom, she raised me and said, you will grow up and compete with white people. That's what I'm raising you to be, because I don't want you to be poor. I don't want you to be broke. I want you to be successful. I mean, that's what she did from all of us. But then think about all the hate that she had to carry in 1960 when she had 3 Black kids and a father who was struggling and a husband who was struggling with drug addiction and the crack cocaine being put in our communities. Right? So all those things are all wounds that we haven't, like mental health wise, we really haven't uncovered, because one of the things is, I think we take a white centric approach to mental health. When you look at all the theorists, they're all white that are published. Like who I got trained by was Beck, Salvador Minuchin, Jay Haley. All these people are white. You know, where's Black? How is our? And then I struggle with going all the way to the Afrocentric side, leaving out me being American, right? Because I can pull from Africa and all those rituals, but that's not where I was born. So what I really pay attention to is like my Blackness, my soul, and how it was impacted by white supremacy, right? So, and you're talking about sinners, and I hope I saw it twice. Walked back into the next one with my little book, took my notes, and I'm going back to see it again. Because I was mad about Wakanda 2. I didn't like what Ryan Coogler did.
I didn't like it either.
I struggle with that. I'm not going to get into that. But
ask you, Gene, are we making any progress here in terms of improving our mental health and having somewhat of a psychological home? And the reason why I ask that is that I would like to think and hope that my children are better off than I was, you know, being raised, born 1980s, being raised in the 80s, parents were born in the 50s, 60s. Those things that I dealt with, things I were able to recognize were correct parenting, you know, situations I'm able to now analyze as an adult and make sense of those things. All that culminates to me, hopefully, in some areas, being a better parent and providing a better home for my kids than I had. And I guess the thought for everybody is that with each generation, things get better and better and better. You got on the show, I heard you say that mental health is what you do every day. You sound like you really made it sound like we still got a long ways to go. So I'm just wondering, though, like, are we any better?
Max, what I always said this, and it's around emergent thinking. I said it ever since I started this in 2017, this work, is I'm looking for an inch, just an inch, but I want it to be a mile deep, right? So change is going to look different, right? For me to be on here for, 7, 8 years, talking about race, that's different. Me walking into schools and communities and agencies and being able to talk about race, and I've had some wonderful, courageous people, teachers, principals, superintendents, who are creating space for race that did not exist. So yes, I believe change is happening. However, it's not going fast enough for me. It's not. So I believe our children, your children, yes, are better, but with white supremacy and our current administration, they're asking us to go backwards. They want us to go backwards. And if we have, and I believe this is a white problem, and I hate when we put it on black people as our problem. I really believe that white people, I encourage you to not be just bystanders to this, and to really be not just an ally to this, but be a co-conspirator to really interrupt it. So our children and their children can be able to have a different mindset when it comes to liberation and valuing people. I hope that, so.
King, can I push back a little bit?
Always.
I don't know if we're better. And when it comes to our children, I understand what you said about opening up space. I don't know that we're better because I think there was a period that my generation and a little bit ahead of me went into survival mode and did not show the younger generation what the older generation went through so that they could be here and do what they're doing. So our children don't really understand when they hear the N-word being used by somebody who does not look like them, that they call their friend and say, oh, well, they don't mean it like this. You know, I can't say that we're better because I think the bulk of us with education became, I'm gonna just say it.
Go ahead.
As we got more educated, we became sellouts, right? So we started thinking about, okay, if I got a child in college and if I got this good job and you know I'm making good money, ain't that what they say, Jane? That I can't let anything jeopardize it. So especially when it comes to allowing somebody that looks like me to come into the same space, I have to vet you to make sure that you don't do nothing that's going to make them look at me and then we both lose out, or it's just I lose out. So I think that we are more cowards nowadays. I think that we are more separated, you know, because when we started using words like calling each other ghetto, we were trying to separate how we act amongst one another. When we get upset when somebody says, you know what I'm saying, or this, that, and that, and we focus on the dialect of a person that looks like you because it does not sound like what you consider to be educated, you know, there's a problem with that. So I personally think that we are further behind now than we were in the 60s and 70s, because at least at the 60s and 70s, all of us had the same wooden fork and spoon on the wall. All of us had in our grandma's house, the footprints in the sand. When you go into our houses now, they are very much made to look non-black. The more educated a person is, the less black their house looks, unless they want to feel like they're tapping into Africa and then everything is a dashiki. You know what I'm saying? So
you're making a lot of blanket statements.
Well, no, I'm just saying, y'all ain't had me on here for a while. I'm getting ready. I know it ain't gonna be another 6 months before they let me back on here. So
I'll come back.
I agree with you. You know, you and I are deep friends. We have good conversations, but I'm also honest with what I see in the mud. You know what I'm saying? To be doing better in life is to be less black in our communities now. And we expect to come out of what we in, and even though we dilute ourselves, and we can't blame that on white people. Black people are doing that.
I disagree with you. I disagree with you on that.
All right, well, come on with it then.
I disagree with you around who's the blame, right?
No. I didn't say that they shouldn't share no blame no more than Chinese. Well, for lack of a better word, y'all, I'm not saying anything harmful. Hispanic people don't always like black people.
No, they don't.
Italians don't like black people. No. Chinese, Japanese people don't like black people. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's equally. I think we choose to always look at the white side of things because that's who brought us over here and gave us our atrocities. But if everybody else is also looking down on us and holding us back, or come and put stores in our neighborhoods but never invest back into the neighborhood, and we don't say nothing because I can just walk down there and get my little Kit Kat and my Pepsi, and that's enough, I think there's a problem, and that's black people.
No, I disagree with you, my brother. I wholeheartedly disagree with you.
Okay.
That is white supremacy.
Okay.
Redlining. That is the system doing its best.
Okay.
because we had Black communities and Black towns that were successful, and they put their foot on our neck and broke them, right? So when we were trying to be successful, and that's where I struggle with some of the Africans who come over here who talked about us being lazy, right? But then after they got to know what was really going on, a lot of my friends and colleagues talked about, you're not lazy. People had their foot on your neck. And every time you were successful, they burned it down and tore it down. And then the Black inferiority complex that we created on ourselves, we blame ourselves. And I was so upset. I was at this Smash Burger over on the north side of Richmond. And the owners from Yemen, in our Black community, the owners from Yemen, but the brother in that I was talking to was talking about how we struggle to have these businesses. But being a Black business owner, and I know you too, right? Get a loan or to get, you know how it's difficult for me to get a lease or property because of my skin? Profit margin, profit loss statements given. Oh, Gene Cash, you're approved. And all of a sudden I walk in and you see who I am. Oh, we're going to go a different direction. So I can't blame me, right? But I think the system is designed for us. Remember I said, love one another, appreciate and admire and trust, right? They taught us not to do that. They taught us to create envy and to dehumanize one another.
When does it become a choice?
When you start to see. Because right now we're oblivious. We're walking in assimilation. And once you start to see truth, then it becomes a choice. But until then, you're blind. We're walking in blindness.
Yeah, and also want to add like that definitely stems from what we were saying a minute ago, which is we got to remember that like we're a threat, right?
Yes.
Like to the system, we're perceived as a threat. I even heard one scholar say that we can't, like we're the only ones that can't change our skin.
Right.
Now, don't take that too literal. But it's like,
I got you.
But when we talk about who's setting up businesses and stuff like that, it's like to the system, they're not a threat. Like, why else would Black history be the only thing under attack right now? Blackness is under attack.
Yes.
Because we are juxtaposed to the system.
Yes.
But y'all don't think that we do that to ourselves sometimes too? Because I can personally tell you, because I don't always play the game here in Charlottesville, the Black elitists as known don't always fool with me because I won't let nobody stand on my shoulders.
Right. Yes, but that's not everybody. That's the only issue that I have is that like the blanket statement of it being like
I'm just
everybody.
saying, like, I mean, I understand what you're saying. Like any point that we make, it's not going to be the exact thing that we're talking about. And that's why the white supremacy mindset also, in my opinion, funnels to Black people because it's a mindset. It's not always what's being done. Because if it's a person of Chinese descent doing it to me, I'm not thinking about white supremacy. I'm thinking about what you doing right here. You know what I'm saying? So that perception is their perception of me is my reality.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Whether I buy into it or not.
And it happens all the time. Like when we look at crime, right? Like, that they like to call Black on Black crime. It's like,
I know, right?
Like in every instance, it's going to make sense to take out your frustration on whoever's around you. It's no different than the man that get beat up at work, but scared to say something to his boss. He may go home and take it out on his wife, right? It's like that happens in our communities a lot. And then we forget who's the problem and we treat each other like we're the problem.
Yeah.
And something else that's very real, Gene, is the mental health impact on being readily available to check everything that comes through that is disrespect or whatever you want to call, however you want to label it, that a person may feel on their Blackness or being, in my case, being female or something that's done against the Black people as a group, that it can be emotionally exhausting. While I guess it's also an obligation for that a person has to take on, especially for themselves or their children, family, strangers, what have you. And so I honestly, I'll tell you, find myself making choices. What should I walk away from? And what do I have time for today?
Yeah.
Max, is an author. I can't remember her name, but it was Black Fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
We walk in Black fatigue every day, and we have to make good mental health choices. Because a lot of people say, "I just couldn't watch it, Gene. I just turned the TV off," because they have to separate themselves from all the pain, the vicarious trauma that's happening to us.
Mm-hmm.
So the one thing that you said is God dang, it's leaving me. The Black fatigue, hopelessness that we carry, and you have to make choices. Now, the other thing that I think we don't talk about is the power and the responsibility, right? So sometimes things are not in our power, and it's not our responsibility. So we should be able to say, okay, I'm not going to step into that today. But if I choose, if I have the power, in which in some spaces I do have power, and in some relationships I do have a responsibility. When I'm walking through, I boycott Whole Foods. I don't go there anymore. I boycott Sam's. I don't go there anymore. But I'm walking through these places. Sometimes I just gotta let stuff go because I don't need to take on every single battle. But
so when do we know it's not our fight?
One, it's always our fight in some ways, my brother.
No. I'm talking about when it's not us.
What do you mean?
Like everybody ties in their struggle with the Black struggle.
Yes.
But then when we need help, nobody shows up. You know, we might get representation, but we never get advocates.
But can I get your initial response though?
Yeah. Let me don't go there yet.
My bad.
I just want to go back to Max's point around sometimes we have to step away and walk away, but we have to understand our power and our responsibility. And Max, is really it's our choice, right? And I was working with a group, and they kept talking about when to intervene on a racially abusive transaction, aka microaggression. I said when there's mutual respect, right? When I am talking about something and the person who is the perpetrator of the microaggression is actually able and willing to have that conversation, but if they're not, walk away. You don't have to engage or but say what you need to say to liberate your soul. But after that, don't be tied to the results. So I don't know if that's, I don't know if I'm answering your question, but the Black fatigue is real, and taking breaks is definitely worth the mental sanity that we all deserve.
Like that.
Thank you.
We are talking to none other than Gene Cash, and as we kind of come to a close, want to make sure that we touch on all that we want to. Only thing that I'm still thinking, y'all, is we brought up Shador Sanders.
Oh yeah,
and since that's such a hot topic, Gene, definitely want to go back to that real quick. Of course, from the mindset, from the from the mental well-being of it. And I think most know, but for those that don't know, star collegiate football player who is the son of Hall of Famer Deion Sanders, was coached by his father, really mentored by his father, as well. And so was top prospect, like one of the best QBs. When I say one of the best, meaning like top 2 quarterbacks projected coming out of college in this year's NFL draft. So as fate would have it or whatnot, the word that's coming out is that his talent was never questioned, but it was his demeanor, it was his approach, it was the demands that he and his father were reportedly making to these teams, like their disposition with owners. And I say owners very intentionally.
Yes.
And so round after round, quarterback pick after quarterback pick, his name was not called. He eventually was called in the 5th round. Someone who was argued to maybe be the first pick of the draft was picked in the 5th round. And so the word coming from it, even from the teams, was that it was never a question of his talent. It was more about his personality, as they would put it. And reports were coming out about, again, they were making demands about what teams they would play for, what they would need, and blah, blah, blah. So the argument is that this isn't the first time that star athletes from star families have made such requests. Like people talk about the Manning family, and raised a lot of people remember Eli was drafted by the Chargers.
Yep.
Archie Manning, his daddy, said
no,
he's not playing for the Chargers.
Yep.
So then they worked out a deal for him to go to the Giants. He wanted to go to New York. right? So nobody really remembers people batting too much of an eye when that happened. And then people talk about, like LeVar Ball, and even LeBron James, right? Tiger Woods' father, Serena and Venus's father, about how black fathers are getting portrayed in a certain way. So Gene, so the mindset that, because a lot of us face that we may not be millionaires and celebrities, but a lot of us face that same ordeal, right? Of if I'm too vocal, if I'm too much of myself, if I ask for what I believe I deserve, then I might not get it. And I've been a part of hiring processes, right, Gene?
Yes.
And it is proven that one, men of color, and then especially women, they do not ask for more money, or they do not question offers as much as white people do, out of the fear that they won't get the job if they ask.
Yes, definitely. That is real.
And so sort of talk about that just embodying that, right? Of not being able to ask questions, and the impact that has on somebody, because they could fall like, Shedeur Sanders fell from his expectations.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if Shedeur fell.
Mm-hmm.
He was thrown. Mm-hmm. He was cast away. He was castigated. He was castrated. Mm-hmm. He didn't fall. That was purposeful, and it was I think it was to show the power that they carry, right? I look at it the bully, the victim, and the bystander, right? The bully, the owners. And that's what I think Michael Strahan said. Whoever did this, they didn't even come out and say they did it. They just did it. And then you have the victim, the Sanders family, but then all the bystanders that watched and didn't say a word.
Was it a shot on Shedeur or Dion?
I think it's both.
Yeah.
Really?
I think it's both. You cannot be a Hall of Famer and come in and look like Nick Saban in the NCAA and get a contract in Colorado and be comfortable, and then raise a son who's going to become just as powerful.
Two.
No, when it comes to the bully, white supremacy, they don't want that to happen, because all you got to do is say Johnny Manziel. So what I'm saying, Johnny in Cleveland, he was horrible. But look where he landed. Or who was the other guy? Baker Mayfield, right? They were both 10 times worse than Shedeur. But because of Shedeur's complexion and melanin, no, you can't have an uprising citizen. He did nothing wrong. And I hate when people talk about he was arrogant, he was cocky. Why couldn't he just been confident? Why couldn't he just be confident?
Right.
And self-assured?
Because that reminds me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Because his father was a Hall of Famer. His dynasty, his legacy, like legendary, his legacy put him where he's supposed to be. And look at what he's doing in Cleveland. I just love it, because I'm from Oberlin, Cleveland. I just love him walking through that city and inspiring Black and brown people. So I'm sorry. That's it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. Great take. Wanted to get your take on that, but Reza, I don't know what you have. But
Yeah,
make sure
remember
Gene
the thing that you and Gene were talking about on the last show, where when we were talking about the police and comply.
Yes.
Like whenever they come to you, you comply, right? Essentially, everything that y'all been talking about was them showing how you need to, like what you said, if you're going to be successful, you're going to act this particular way. If you want to make it through here, this is what I'm comfortable with dealing with. So you comply. This is very much what we went through with the police some years ago, but it's an old game.
Yes.
They say, okay, this is where you need to fit in this box. The further you're out this box, if they were doing all the things that Dion has them doing and they were show ponies, they wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
But because they started making demands, now you're trying to sit at the same table as us.
Yes.
Makes sense.
And that wasn't going to happen.
Which I could be wrong, but I believe at some point in the future, it's still going to happen anyway. And I mean, we've seen time and time again where the attempt has been made. I mean, heck, look at our history in this nation, but where the attempt has been made to set back and set down and hold up our progress. And it may have slowed things down, but it's still to no avail.
Didn't stop it.
And all this man needed was to get in the door. So I'm not entirely convinced that whatever they were trying to, he might go off and make things worse, but I'm not entirely convinced that they taught the lesson that they, so to speak, was trying to teach.
Good point, Max. So yeah, it's good stuff. But Gene, we are up against the clock, my man. Always great. Last words. How do people reach out to you that this may be their first time hearing from you? Now they want to have a session with you.
Okay. Well, you can always go to our website, www.kavahelps.com. We are in Charlottesville and Richmond area, and we are always here to help, care, and serve the communities. I think that's the best way. I know we're on time, but yeah, we also offer support groups. The Breathing Room is open every fourth Wednesday. That's just for Black and Brown. I remember Max asking me, how can you do that just for Black people? Why are you doing that? Because I have a platform and I believe that Black people should be honored just as well as everybody else.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe an off-color joke and ask, did you have a sign on the door that said no whites allowed?
No, they never said no.
Razor's supposed to say that, not you.
Razor ain't that crazy. No, sir.
Right. But I'll send you guys some email and let you know what's happening in our community, because we're doing great things. Dr. Hardy's coming this week. He's coming virtually, so I'll make sure you have that information as well.
Awesome.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Gene. As always, until next time, sir. Please don't be a stranger. Anytime you got something coming on, hit us up.
I got you guys. Appreciate you. Love you. And one more thing. I'm sorry. Yeah. Compassion. Razor. Yes. The answer to this is compassion. We have to have compassion for our own people. If we don't have compassion, we will keep devaluing ourselves.
I got to work on that.
Yes, we do. All right, love you guys. Appreciate you.
Love you back, brother. Yeah. So Max, Razor in closing, pretty good show, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
Good convo. See, we gotta talk more often.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Max, you know.
Oh, you want me to end?
Yes. Well, no, I was going to say, too, as we go, the word on the street, the good news, there's a lot going on. I told people May 27th, Jefferson School, y'all reserve your seats. It's free for that local government town hall. Our friends over with Chiamba as well, celebrating our African culture and stuff. They are taking vendors and sponsors and selling tickets for their ball coming up in June. And, the annual African Street Festival in July every year. You got all that coming up. There's just so much. So I would just say stay tapped into the Discover Black Seavilles, the Black Professional Network, all those things, and you're going to see so much coming up and going on for the community. And we so much we can't even mention it all, but we're gonna share it.
Right.
Follow the folks online.
For sure.
It's a lot of good news. It's a lot of things to share going on in these here streets. It's indeed.
Not much left for me to say. I mean,
fight
and then compassion.
Yeah, fight and compassion.
You ain't always gotta be right. You gotta be compassionate.
Better than I know the other. How about that? You like that, Jane?
Yeah. Thanks to everyone. Good show. We'll see you next time. Take care.
All right.
Then get his face tatted like a apologizing. I'm glad D Rose came home. Y'all didn't deserve him neither. From Alondra down to Central. Better not speak on some.
IMHO Talk Show. Sir Charles, Miss Max, Razor.
You're listening to In My Humble Opinion
with Maxilia Robinson and Charles Lewis. Only on 101.3 Jams.